we're going to get started. We got work to do. And Farah, I want to bring you up to speed. So why don't we do that while we're waiting for folks. We had a wonderful board meeting that I'm really, really sorry you missed. The miscommunication there. I'm sorry about that. Where we basically created an action plan. You know, what will we do? How will we do it? In what order will we do it? And this past Monday, a bunch of us got together to plan for any facilitated conversations that we're going to have. So we knew that we were going to do a survey. We knew that we were going to do some facilitated conversations, other things that might come up. And in the planning and conversation around those facilitations, what became clear is that we're not going to we'll do a survey for people who would rather answer a survey than be in a facilitated conversation. We'll do a conversation for just sort of the meeting people where they are, instead of sort of the cafeteria menu, that we would sequence them. And that came up as we were looking at the conditions that need to be in place for people to participate in a facilitated conversation. And a lot of that was not, I prefer conversation. So it wasn't learning style or participation style, but I don't have time. If we're going to go through catalytic thinking, that could be two 2-hour meetings. That could be 3 2-hour meetings. And that's asking a lot. So what if we made the survey part 1? And then if you're interested in continuing to go with, so it would ask the first couple of questions. So the survey would ask, who will be impacted? The survey will ask, what is the highest potential outcome? And then we could use that very specific 1 2-hour period to focus on the conditions that need to be in place. And so the survey became step 1, looking at the first couple of questions, rather than we'll load everything into the survey, we'll load everything into the facilitations. No, we'll just actually do this in sequence. And it was fun on Monday, for those of you who were there, to watch everybody go, oh, yeah. I mean, it was just this wonderful look on everybody's face to say, this makes sense. So today, the all-important, we're going to be talking about designing the survey. And I love the fact that we already talked about the fact that it needs to, in some way, address the first couple of questions in catalytic thinking. I scribbled a note down this morning. I guess I misplaced it, about one of the things I was thinking about. We had also talked about using the survey and including this in the conversations around what is it that inspires you to stay connected to creating the future? What is it? What benefit do you get? We've been talking so much about what is the benefit that folks get, asking folks that in the survey in addition to those other questions. So I'm thinking about, and Josephine, if you'd like to play, because Sherry had volunteered you all to pull together the survey.
Yeah, and I'm still saying we will pull together a survey, so we're good. But
I gotcha.
We can definitely do that. Is based on this discussion today. I want you to know that we can deliver something for the group. Absolutely.
Awesome. What I was thinking would be helpful, if you guys want to play today, is to have you facilitate today's conversation. Because you know what questions I'm going to ask. And I know that in the practice group, you've been looking for opportunities to practice. So if you want to play.
I don't think I will be comfortable to do that, but maybe Sherry can.
Sherry's driving. I don't want to put any more on Sherry. Sherry's driving. If suddenly we hear a big clunk, I don't want it to be because she suddenly had to facilitate.
Oh God, yeah, no, let's not do that. So no, I would rather not. I wasn't prepared for that. I would have been
Well,
if I thought so.
I know. I'm springing it on you, and that's why I'm asking if you're comfortable with it.
Mhm.
Let's take a little bit of time though and bring ourselves into the room. I was giving Farah some background on what had happened in her absence, and let's take a moment and a deep breath to sort of bring ourselves into the room and just share what is going on in your life that is meaningful, is fun, is powerful. I will tell you something that's fun that just happened to me. And those of you who've been part of our, well, you've all been part of our board meetings, our integrity meetings. I got a picture sent to me of Angie and Carl together at a conference in the UK. And I am so jealous. I am so jealous. So Carl sent it saying the research, the board's research arm is working together in the UK. So that was just wonderful seeing the two of them together. That's my awesome for the day. Plus the weather's getting nice.
That's neat.
It is neat.
I can't really see and raise a hand, but I'm happy to go if this is a good time.
Perfect.
Okay. And this is work related, so I'm sorry, but I get so much of my awesome from other people that I run across in the work that we all do together, all of us. So I don't know if any of you, I know, you know, one of our members, I believe, has a library background, but we have been working in another project of the Digital Access and Equity Initiative with libraries. And I don't know, darn it, you know how hard it is to get these so smart and so creative professional librarians to come to the table. It's just hard. And so we have been really inching our way towards what they need and trying to align it with what resources we might have. And I'm so excited about something that may turn out to be nothing, but we are assisting myself and another colleague. We are assisting a 10-county consortium of libraries with putting together a 2-page white paper for a federal grant for the Laura Bush 21st Century Librarian Program. And when I say it may become nothing, it's because it's just a preliminary pass at submitting it to the Institute for Museums and Libraries. But if you get approved, then they ask you to complete a full application. It still goes through a process. But the awesome is we got these people to come to the table and work together. And these last few days, we've had to really put the pressure on them because, you know, running out of time sometimes is a way for people to get out of things. And we haven't let them do that. And we're just really excited that we will have at least a concept paper that they've all contributed to. So that's Monday, the 19th, and then it's due on the 21st. So wow. I'm just kind of excited about that.
Oh, that sounds wonderful. Wonderful. Bringing people together that don't normally get together is always fun. Challenging and fun.
Thank you.
Yay. And I see Alicia is here. I'm hoping that we can get to see you as well. What else is going on with you all?
I can go. It has been a really difficult professional week for me. Just some stuff that I wasn't expecting to happen and have to deal with in 2022. definitely happened, and honestly is some of the worst stuff that I've ever dealt with in my life. And so wanted to just kind of put that out there, that it's a very interesting kind of space that I'm in right now. And as always, I'm just very grateful for friends who have stepped up this week to just kind of hold and let me process and sit with stuff as it unfolded. So I think I say that a lot in my awesome, is the just having community and having people who will be able to like put aside whatever. And in one case, like someone, very consciously put aside something that was going on in their life in order to just show up and support me. And I just really am deeply grateful every time something like that happens.
It's wonderful that you have that support, and I'm so sorry to hear that you're dealing with that stuff. Ugh. But thank you for letting us know. Thank you for telling us. Josephine, how about you? What's going on in your world?
Well, I just got back in town last night, so just catching up with my world. But I think top of mind awesome is my son turns 25 Monday. So that's exciting and reflective and full of all different emotions, fabulous, and just so proud of him and can't believe we're here and how'd we get here. Glad that he's here and safe and really spreading his wings and holding his feet on the ground strongly to follow his passion despite what the world might say he should be doing. And that takes a lot. And so proud of that. So, yeah.
Takes a lot of courage.
Yeah.
That speaks well to you, Mom.
Thank you.
How about you, Mark? What's going on in your world?
I just realized I've been skipping over an awesome that I've had for several weeks. I'm working with a group, Biodiversity for Climate Restoration up in Boston. I've been working with Fritjof Capra's group for quite a while. My third group is our civic organizations and this group as well. And I realized that of these four groups, I'm involved with people that I can trust with absolutely anything I say, that it's not going to get back in the wrong way to the wrong people. The matter of trust, especially locally is such a can of worms with all sorts of ugliness and politics and all the rest of the crap that goes on local level. But I'm working with people that I can trust implicitly, and that's an amazing thing. I don't think I've ever had that before.
Wow. That is beautiful. And Alicia, are you there? Can we hear you?
I am here. I was having some technical difficulties, but I got my phone to work, so I am here.
Okay.
My awesome is my little sister is driving into town today from Orlando, and it's about an hour and a half, and she's kicking me and my husband out to go on a date night, and I am so excited. So, yeah, that's a happy way to start the weekend.
Oh, yay. That's awesome. Awesome. I love it. Okie dokie. Let's get started talking about the survey. And as we said, the purpose of the survey is going to be to really be the first. There'll be invitations. They'll be letting folks know what's going on. I shared yesterday with the group, and I'll do it again right now, that Dimitri and I have been working on a report that pulls together everything we've talked about over the past 3 months. That You all have seen bits and pieces of it, but it really just takes everything and puts it into one place so that people who do want to join us can find out, well, what the hell are you all talking about? Why are you doing it? It can be part of the invitation. It can be linked to, and if nothing else, we're just documenting what we actually did. I will, there it is, share with those of you who haven't already seen this. This is just a sketch. Dimitri's actually turning it into something that's not my handwritten, but it is what some folks at Creating the Future have called an action map that shows here is the outcome that we want, an engaged community where people feel connected to each other, that they're growing and learning individually and together, that they own their community and have the power to create change. Which is so much of what we talked about early on in the conversations. All of these different colored lines here are conditions that need to be in place, and then preconditions that need to be in place before those conditions can happen, preconditions before those can happen, and then ultimately that the actions we take will create those conditions. And so that our community feels engaged, feels connected to each other, feels through this engagement process that they are growing and learning, that they have the power to create change, and hopefully can ripple that out to other people in the work that they're doing. And so as we think about the survey being the first, beyond the introduction, beyond the invitation, beyond any sort of promotional stuff that we do, talking about it in the newsletter, et cetera. The first real point of participation on folks' part is going to be that survey. And as we mentioned, we had determined that it was going to take the first 2 questions of catalytic thinking. So these are sort of givens at this point. We've already come to that, the first 2 questions, as well as some questions around, as we said, what draws you to creating the future? What benefit do you get? And so we've sort of already done those. So I just want to make sure that those are in a box. Those are set aside. As we think about the survey, though, who will be impacted by the survey?
Yeah, I want to ask, based on that, this is Sherry. So this survey, this is not a new.
You're breaking up, Sherry.
Right.
Sherry, you're breaking up. We can barely hear you.
I'm just saying this because I'm about to hopefully get to my on live, but okay. Okay, I'll go off. I'll be at my home shortly.
Okay.
So the question.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Joseph. Go ahead. I'm sorry. I'm going to step out and just listen.
Oh, we heard you then, Sherry. I was just going to say, so the question on the table is who will be affected by the survey, right? I mean, the obvious of catalytic thinking. I mean, us all, catalytic thinking for sure.
Creating the future, yeah.
Yeah.
Anybody we show it to.
Yep. So anybody who's participating in the survey. People who choose not to answer but look at it.
I would also say, I think, hopefully, I hope, I don't know if this will be true, but observers and people who've kind of been hanging out on the sides and are interested, but don't know how to engage more. A survey is kind of a really nice thing. It comes to you. You can engage with it when you want. You can answer the questions you want. And so that's what I love about that kind of approach, is that it engages those. And then also just quiet voices who struggle with trying to be heard over in other kind of settings.
Yes.
Will we invite them to share it with other people?
Maybe. The broader world, their ripples.
And
Yeah,
if
people,
I,
go ahead.
I was going to say, Mark, that made me think if we do, then that certainly helps us pinpoint the direction of the questions. Because in my mind, originally it was those who have experienced creating the future, at least on some realm.
Yeah.
But right, so maybe that could be part of the ask, is share it with those that you know have had conversations with you about creating the future, versus share it with everyone.
Yeah.
Yeah, so these are the weak links, strong bonds and weak links. So our network is the strong bond, and then the weak link is my 5 people that would benefit from this. And I started that list already a couple of weeks ago, and it's not for everybody. It's it's just like I've got Laura, Juan, and Sid off on the second wave, but I've got 5 other people that need to hear this right away.
Right. Yeah. I'm thinking, as you both are talking, I'm thinking about Elaine so often mentions that she shares our newsletters with so many people, that she shares it with her network. Her ability to say, if you've enjoyed the stuff I've shared with you.
Yes.
Ooh, yeah. Yeah. So it is, as you said, Josephine, we're definitely looking at people who have a connection to creating the future. But that is that weak link. They're not getting the newsletter. They're not really, quote unquote, participating, but they're participating in their own way. They're reading, they're absorbing, they may be actually following. I mean, one of the things that Kim has mentioned frequently is that she heard about creating the future in a workshop I did a year or 2 ago. I had never heard of her. So there was no direct connection, and suddenly she was like, oh yeah, I want to be part of this. So yeah, I think that's great.
I like that. If you've enjoyed the stuff I've shared with you.
Mm-hmm.
And just because I start thinking, my mind starts going, so is it shared with you or spoken to you about? I feel like I would want to see the spoken to you about, because if someone said it to me, I might say you didn't share anything with me. Just being technical.
Yeah, the term I would use to the people on my initial list of 5 is, you've heard me speak in these terms before.
Yes, good one. Yes.
Yeah.
And you're tired of hearing it. Now you need more.
Never, Mark.
Yeah, I like that.
I also wanted to just, Mark, thank you for naming that this isn't for everybody, because I think the power I draw from that and like having that approach is also to not water down the material so much that it feels like it's for everyone. Because I see a lot, I do this and I see others also, we kind of become in this downward spiral. And so this invitation of, you've engaged somehow already, you've already indicated that curiosity and that interest, and this is to deepen, I think is a really, for me, I'm finding that to be a very powerful frame.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the watering down far is so important, because so much of my work is working for the least common denominator. It's got to be accessible to absolutely everybody and his mother, and this is not what this is about.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm really, really glad you said that, Farah.
Mm-hmm.
I mentioned Dimitri and I are pulling together this report, and there's a brief introduction, which pretty much has been the introduction to every blog post that we've done about this over the past couple of months. Just, noting where it came from. We started with our succession planning. It went into, okay, what is the benefit that has to continue? And Dimitri said to me, for people who have not been aware of this, do they need a couple of pages of explanation? And my answer was no. It was sort of, we'll give him a paragraph, we'll give him a sentence here, but that really this is yeah, I love the not watering down the material. Yeah.
Or also not trying to make a one-word synopsis.
Yeah.
Can't get done.
No, absolutely. Absolutely.
Thanks for rolling with me. I'm sorry, I was in the traffic was crazy. There was an accident and it delayed me. But can I ask then, if I'm thinking in the wrong thoughts of this, what I was going to mention then a little earlier is, and this now based on what you said, this may be not the direction, but is there, based on what initially we were talking about the questions being, and the fact that we would like to not only have the materials that you and Dimitri have gleaned from this whole experience and everything that you've worked on before, and we've also talked about a very short video as well. Is this not the direction we're thinking? Is that gauging the interest by having a shorter initial survey of some questions so that we are trying to figure out if people are ready to participate? Or based on what you guys are just talking about now, that may not be the direction. It may be more about, if you're ready to come in, you're ready to come in because we've kind of made a short list like Mark's talking about. I've been trying to think of people that are in the right, in a phase. I couldn't say if they're right or wrong, but in a phase where they might be interested in moving forward this. So I don't know if that makes sense, but let's
do this, Sherry. Let's hold the how to later. And let's let the questions guide us to 1 survey, 3 surveys, whatever. But it's a really good question to bring up as we start listening for what needs to be in place. Which really leads to the question of, what does the survey or surveys need to accomplish for all of these people? So we've got, let's start with, which I never do, let's start with us. I never do. We always start with everybody else, but let's start with creating the future. What does it need to accomplish for creating the future?
I mean, it does have to help us understand what is helpful.
Give me more.
Yeah, and I think where my mind was going is, this is a learning process for us and an understanding process for us, and so yeah, just wanting to kind of keep that really alive.
Yes. Yep. And what are we looking to learn?
I feel like it's gauging folks' interest in continuing to stay involved, like in future creating the future. I think it's just gauging, I always look at it as, or I feel like this could be, I don't know the better way to say it, but who's right on the edge, like who's really participating, who's actively participating is the better way to say it, by the people that fill it out. So I'm looking at it as who's filling it out, how many we get, like the pieces of it, and then the separate section is what they're saying in it.
Yeah,
they
yeah,
use it. I feel like it's a twofold.
I hadn't even thought. I was so stuck in my head on the content that we want. I mean, we want answers to those first two questions. We want
Yes.
answers to the, how are you benefiting? But I had not been thinking of it as an on-ramp for folks who have not stepped forward in any way other than maybe they clicked on something in the newsletter, but that's something they thought they were doing all by themselves in their bedroom.
That's what I think. Yeah, it could be an invitation to.
Yeah.
So for me, before this being with you guys, for me, my knowledge of just working with you in the past, Hildy, if I would get the survey, I would be more likely to do that than I would have felt comfortable coming to one of the meetings and being on Zoom with everyone. So it's, gauging how participatory they are right now.
Yep.
Or feeling right now.
Yep. And even if we're not necessarily gauging how engaged they are, it is that invitation to take a step, to move from passive to a little bit more active. Yeah.
I like the way you said that. Yes.
Yep. Yeah, hadn't even thought about that.
Another thought I had is that because this is a very deeply meaningful process for all of us, and we're working as a group to help better discover and explain what creating the future really means. I think the survey will help us determine how close or far away people are from understanding, and it will help us potentially communicate with them in a more meaningful way if we're feeling more comfortable, together, of how to explain the process. I think we're always very careful here, and I think it's a good thing, of how we try to explain or define what we're thinking and where we're going. And I think that's been a good thing about this process, and that we're comfortable doing it here. Maybe we're not clearly able to find the right words in each one of these sessions, but we are around people that are thinking at the same time and helping to bring those together. And I think it will help us find people that are, like Josephine said, like maybe on the fringe or on the cusp of being ready to have this experience.
What that is, wow. Thank you, Sherry. What that is really bringing to me, and it gets in part to what Farah was saying in terms of this is a learning process for us. What do they think we are?
Mm-hmm.
I frequently people say, now what exactly do y'all do? And I know a lot of groups, that is actually the question, unless you are like handing out food or you're a domestic violence shelter. There's so many groups where the question is, now explain to me again what exactly y'all do. And I think that's another big one in terms of our learning.
And I think it related to that and building off of that a little bit is, I'm curious about the conditions in which I'm thinking of like catalytic frameworks and these tools as tools, right? And so the conditions in which a person might reach for that toolbox, like what are those moments where I'm going to sit there and be like, oh, I'm stuck, I need inspiration, or I am inspired, or like what are those conditions that make me go, oh, let's try catalytic thinking in this moment?
Oh, yeah.
And the other thing that's kind of coming up that I just want to name is, and this is a little tactical, so it's not quite big picture, but open-ended questions that aren't asking, do I or do I not want to use catalytic thinking, but again, are framing it in the under what conditions.
Yep.
It's not, do you find this useful or not? It's under what conditions, in what circumstances
Yep.
are you finding this most helpful?
Yeah. Yep.
I'm going to throw myself on my sword here. I think I've discovered that the tools that we have are themselves the paradigm. So if you're offering a shift in the paradigm, it is through these tools. I am getting people to, all right, let me step back a little bit. I came up with a phrase that I think I'm gonna be using, and I'll tell you why in a sec. This is an authentic invitation to a conversation about our common values and shared concerns. And I'm coming from the civics, I'm coming from a nonprofit environmental organization, I'm coming from an environmental within town perspective, because what I'm going to be doing is teaching people how to ask these questions for their own organizations.
Yeah.
We close?
Yeah. Yeah, it's very meta. It becomes very meta and very fractal.
So fractal is the word I have on this paper. So it's the nested dolls. So the question within the question, and I'm going to be asking the people, let's take the civics for a minute. They're very active, very intelligent, and looking for a lot of things. And one of those things is to start themselves asking the questions, who are we doing this for? Who will be affected? What is great going to look like? Because we're constantly buried in the, oh, we've got the downtown revitalization and the blah, blah, blah. I want to, again, bring this back up for this group of leaders to actually ask the question, what would great look like? And we've talked about visioning, but visioning goes sideways quickly. And we've talked about this too, but I think asking these people to ask these questions of their people.
Well, that leads directly to what will the survey make possible for the people who are filling it out, or whether they're filling it out or they're the folks who look at it and choose not to, but look at the questions. Because one of the things that we've learned is a lot of people look at our stuff, they don't participate in it, but they're learning from the way we're doing it. So they're not participating in a board meeting, but they're watching because they want to see what questions we're asking. They're watching because they want to see the way that we relate to each other. So for the people who see the survey, what do we want that survey to make possible for them? And as you noted, Mark, a big piece of that is exactly what I just said, is taking what they see, and now you go ask those questions. What else do we want the survey to make possible for the people who see it, participating or not?
We want them to see paths forward, not just one, but several opportunities to continue to be a part of this process and to continue to gain some of what Mark said, the ability to think about, who's this really for? What am I really doing here? How can I really continue to be a part of this, of moving forward in creating the future? And that there are several ways I can do that and not just be right or wrong.
I'd add to that I hope that people who see the survey, including those who, look at it, open it, and are like, oh, I don't have time for this right now, still experience a moment of spaciousness, that the questions themselves kind of trigger that part of both our intellectual and emotional curiosity to hold that, like, that ethos of what is possible. And I could even imagine getting a survey like that, opening it and being like, I don't have time for, like, I only have time for 2 minutes, like transactional thing right now. And it's still captivating my imagination and staying with me through the day. And so,
Yeah,
I
a
guess my
question that
is-
sticks with you.
Yeah. No, sorry, I was just like, what are the frames that we use that also lead to that spaciousness?
Talk more about when you say spaciousness. Talk more about what you're thinking.
It is kind of invitations to pause and consider and think about the big things. And I say that because, again, I think so often, especially on email, when I get things, you know, the first couple of things are very short. It's like, tell me this, tell me this, tell me this, tell me this. And it pushes my mind into, you know, check boxes. Like, I'm checking this, I'm checking off that. And that feels confined. Like, a checkbox is confined, right? It is small, it holds, and it's something to get through, versus a big question is something to experience, to ponder, to like play with, not something to just necessarily get through.
Oh, I love that framing.
And I am curious in that I'm holding that tension a little bit between wanting to create an experience of spaciousness for people who are taking the survey and wanting to center our need to learn from responses to that survey. And I'm not saying that they're mutually exclusive, but I think that there is an interesting interplay between those two needs that, yeah, that's just interesting to me.
Yeah, well, I think as we start to deconstruct what does it take to create that space and what does it take to get what we need, we'll find either where the confluence is or that there is none.
You know, based on that, Farah, the whole idea of taking a survey, checking the boxes, getting through it in 40 seconds, maybe it shouldn't be called a survey. Call it something else.
Really?
Maybe the first line should be when you have 5 minutes of space in your life to think, or so. I don't know. I'm just throwing things on the spaghetti on the backsplash here.
Yeah.
I
I saw. Oh, go ahead, Josephine.
I was going to say, I definitely like the idea of calling it something else. Like,
Yeah.
definitely let's not call it survey or questionnaire.
Yeah.
Yeah, because
Invitation is the best thing that so far that, you know, just invitation.
Yeah. I saw something the other day that struck me, and I'm glad you guys said this because I totally forgotten it, which was it was like, do you want to know what we're doing? Take the quiz. I was like, everybody wants to take a quiz, you know, lose 20 pounds, take the quiz. Maybe we could just call it lose 20 pounds. Everybody would click. Improve your sex life. Everybody would click.
Yes, let's do it. It would be an experiment nonetheless.
There you go. But yeah, I had thought, you know, take the quiz. Oh, okay. But I think that's really, really smart, Mark, not calling it a survey.
Thanks. How about an invitation to share some time thinking together? Because that automatically puts me into 5 minutes. It's not 60 seconds anymore.
Right. Yeah.
Or think through something, or I don't know.
Well, so let's deconstruct a little bit the big thing that we're talking about right now, creating that space where it is not something to get through. It is not the transactional tick boxes. What would it take for people to experience that? What would it take for them to click on it and want to do it? What would they need to have in order to want to do that? And to those of you who have been in the cohort, which is everybody except me and Farah, notice that I am just taking one of those pieces that y'all said were an outcome, and I'm starting to deconstruct it, and I'm starting to ask, what would it take? So what would it take for people to say, yeah, I want to do that?
So again, the negative framing is, don't open this unless you have 5 minutes, versus could you open this when you have 5 minutes? Or again, thinking out loud, I don't know.
Yeah.
Me
So-
too. Just thinking out loud, it would be what would it take to create the space for it not to be transactional is for me to understand the why. I mean, the what, why, why you're asking, or the how it will be helpful, but in a lovely way.
Yeah, but without the transactional, what's in it for me? And I've worked from that perspective for
Yeah.
so long. It's just incredible trying to flip that, because it's the fallback for me. It's like, what's in it for me? Well, what's my audience want? What are they willing to do? Are they willing to help me with this my project? We've talked about this for months now. They're not helping me with this project.
Yeah, I was just scribbling. 5 minutes of your time can help determine the future of what's next for creating the future, or what's next for what you get from creating the future.
I like that.
I'm playing, but understanding the why. And they need to know approximately how much time will it take. And that could be, it'll take as long as it takes you to think.
On that, I was thinking also of a question up front, or not even a question, but a prompt that's either asking people to reflect on a big question, like of when you think about the future, what holds on to you? What is your story? Like, think about a story or a moment in your time in your life you had to ask a big question or navigate a big choice. In the same way that we, at the start of in-person sessions, use a question or something to bring people together into space and help people make that cognitive shift from I'm on email, I'm doing a thing, to all of a sudden I'm having to engage.
Right.
Is there a way for us to use a framing exercise, a centering exercise in survey form?
I definitely like that. I definitely like that prompt, all that she just said. Right. Like instead of like Mark was saying, like, why am I doing this? Do it for us. We need you to tell us. But that prompt in the very beginning, imagine or think of a time in your life or something thereof. But yeah, I could totally see it starting that way. And then right away, it does all that we've been saying. It's puts you in that space where it's not transactional and, all the things we've said. But yeah, that could be very powerful.
Yep. Yeah.
I mean, in the cohort, this is Alicia, that's what immediately started that trust and had us just jump in, was that initial question asking us even just, who are we? Why are we here? Why do we want to do this? And I think that's huge. And I don't know if I've ever seen that in a survey. So that's really, that's really cool.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
The term co-creation comes up. It's not my project and we're working on it together. It's inclusive, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. What else does it take for folks to, so the survey itself, what does it take for them to think about different questions in their lives? What does it take for them? I'm just reading the stuff that we've already talked about of what we want them to get out of it. I think one of the other things we want them to get out of it is those three things that we said were the highest potential outcome of what this whole process could be, which is what does it take for them to feel connected to creating the future or possibly to each other? Not sure that can happen in the survey, but certainly to feel connected, to feel they're learning and growing, and to feel that they have the power to decide. So I don't know if there's like preamble in there that needs to be in there, or and some of that might be in the invitation. But what needs to be in place for them to feel that they're learning from it?
That they're learning from the survey?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. A question I always like to include is, are there questions that we didn't ask that you wish we had asked?
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I'm thinking salesy, and I don't want to come across like that, but I'm thinking when I'm scrolling through things, what grabs me, and Hilda, you just said, three things, come to mind. And so I don't know if it's to me, when I see something that says, what are the top 5 this, or what are the top 3 this,
Right.
I know I can read that. So I go to it and I quickly read it, but I almost feel like, again, I'm not trying to be salesy, but to get the attention,
right.
It's, it comes across as something like that, where, how did these people, use these 3 things too, and this is where your either your brief testimonial sentence or whatever. And again, I'm starting to
and we keep going back to it, and I'm differentiating in my mind now, the invitation versus the survey itself. And so really focusing, and I know that Mark and Josephine both need to go like in a minute or so.
Okay.
Is there anything, Josephine and Mark, in terms of the things that we said creating the future needs to know, that this will be in terms of what creating the future accomplishes, this will be an on-ramp to more participation. It'll answer the questions. It'll determine what they think we are, and under what circumstances they're using the tools. Is there anything that occurs to you? Because all of those could just be questions.
I keep going back to that question, which is pretty simplistic, but what inspires you to stay connected to creating the future? Mm-hmm. So part of what you just said, Hildy, is it will help us know what folks need to continue to stay connected. Yeah. The survey will. I think that's critical.
Yeah.
Josephine, that does 2 things. Speaking of inspiring, it's an assumptive close from the salespeople. The assumptive close is that you are inspired, and that the invitation is already embedded in that. How do you want to stay engaged?
Yeah. That question, what do you need? What inspired you to stay connected, and what do you need to continue to stay connected?
Or I say, instead of what inspired you, I say what inspires you to stay connected, so that it's both, sort of, instead of what do you need to stay connected, but sort of like Mark said, it already, you've been inspired and you're going to continue to.
Yeah.
What inspires you to stay connected?
There we go.
Yeah, that's past, present, and future.
Yep.
Yeah, I feel like maybe, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Carry on. I'm going to watch the video when I get back, when it gets up, and thank you.
And add your thoughts, because this is going to be it.
I will.
Thank you, guys.
So thank you. Sorry to leave early.
I was going to add one other thing. Again, I'm thinking of in order to get like my best thinking, and in a relational kind of situation, the things that I'm also looking for are safety for myself and transparency on like, what is this? Where is it going? And the way I do that in facilitated spaces, like when I'm in person with someone, again, is that we do like a framing centering exercise to bring people into the space. And then I introduce myself and I'm very clear on who I am, what we're doing together, what the rules are. And I feel like in surveys, we kind of just, there's like an intro and then boom, boom, boom questions. And I'm curious if there's a way to somehow recreate a little bit of like, let's ask you a question, start you thinking, then share. We're going to ask you some big questions. And please know we're going to use that information responsibly. We're not, you know, to be transparent about what we're going to do with the information. It doesn't have to be long, but to like inculcate that sense of safety that like, we're honoring and respecting your thoughts. We're not going to commodify them. We're not exploiting them.
Yep. Yeah. Really, really important. Yeah, it's no surprise. It is a different way of thinking about a survey. Alicia just sent a note that she's going to step away for a minute, and I believe she's going to be back. I saw it flash up on the screen. Yeah, she's got kids stuff. That what I'm sensing, and my language is probably not going to be precise, is that the instrument itself is almost a conversation. That we're moving back and forth between some exposition and some question. Some creating space for people, because again, it's not a tick box thing. You know, surveys that are just either multiple choice or, you know, what's your 2 favorite shows? And you're like, I got 6 favorite shows. I got to choose one. I don't have time for this. I'm going to go. But if we really want people to think, and again, you know, the other part of this is we want them to answer it. So it can't be too long and it can't be too full of stuff. And yet it needs to, I think, you know, you mentioned the word relationship, Clara. We strive so much in everything we do at Creating the Future to focus on relationship. What does it take for a survey to build, to exemplify relationship, to feel like I'm in relationship, to feel like I'm in a conversation?
A response, a connection. I mean, most people fill out surveys and never hear from anyone again. And we're taking information from people in surveys, but not necessarily doing anything but thanking them for filling it out. But how do we respond back in a way that then begins the relationship?
Yeah, it's the mutual accountability piece. It's the opposite of extracting piece. And we talked about that. I don't know if you guys had seen the action plan that we came up with out of the board, but at every step it was follow-up. So survey, then follow-up, and how are we following up, and what is going into that follow-up?
I think the other thing to me that speaks to what conversations are, and I don't know how to say this exactly, but it's also not asking too much. I feel like a lot of times surveys are just like, oh, let me ask one more question. Let me ask one more question. Let me ask one more question.
Right.
And it's also not how conversations go, right? It's not like conversations are not, you say talking points, I say talking points, and we get through everything each of us individually needs to say. It's here's a thing. Let's explore the thing together for a little bit. And I think framing this, the survey also in coordination with some facilitated sessions, is saying, well, here's the start of a conversation, and then we'll continue it. But again, it's not us just asking every question we have in our minds. We're like firing at you in this moment. It's let's pick the most interesting of the questions and just ask those. And then I do want to again balance it with like, if part of what we're getting from this is unearthing and like understanding who the people are who are inspired but maybe not connected, who are interested but not yet fully engaged, what does that piece look like? Because I do think that some element of that is extractive, to use that word kind of deliberately. And so how are we saying, you know what, actually we have a very tactical reason for also engaging in this survey. We need to get your name and your email address so we can do other things together.
To you, which is normally what people do, is we need it so we can do other things to you.
But again, like, what is that, right? It's a, how do we some point in this survey explicitly just say, and like, these are the things that we need.
I think we do it. I think I think it's just, if what we're saying is our goal in this survey, and I think it's really important to say, here's our goal for the survey. Our goal is, we've got some questions that we absolutely need answers to for us to collaboratively, all of us, you especially, to determine what's next for creating the future. So that's number one. We are also hoping that you get excited by the survey and may want to continue to play. I think being honest about all of the things that we said, we need to understand and learn from the survey what y'all think we are, because sometimes and so many people who are on our lists are engaged in organizations in some way. They're either leading, participating in, working at, etc. And how many of them will know, oh yeah, nobody knows what we do. I am so tired. In my old consulting days, I was so tired of people saying, yeah, we're the best kept secret in town. It's like, stop bragging about that. And so I think, Laura, I think you're really onto something. I think we need to be very, very very explicit about, here's why we're doing the survey. And here's what we're hoping you will get out of it also, because we've just named that.
And not a prize, like a set of earbuds, or pick one of, when did that happen? That's my question, is when did asking people to share their thoughts voluntarily become, I'm doing it only because I get a prize at the end?
Because people were trying it again, is when how is leading the conversation versus what.
Right.
It is,
I don't want
trying to do is get people to answer. And every time we've done a survey, nobody answers, and somebody in the back of the room says, what if we give them earbuds? And they go, oh yeah, that's a great idea. And that's how that shit happens.
So that's how we're different here a little. We're not I'm just being a little funny right now, but
No, it's true.
I do not want the prize, because to get the prize is how all the other problems start for you, which is
and the prize. The prize is what we're hoping they will get out of connecting with the survey.
Correct. Right. But yes, I was just thinking about something Farah said about, conversations, and how a conversation doesn't always end. It's a continuation of thoughts and discussions based on what you've heard and learned and shared from others. And so, it's an ongoing engagement or invitation, as you guys were saying earlier, to connect and have a relationship in creating the future.
Yeah. I'm at the point where if I were writing this survey, which I'm glad y'all are taking the first stab at it, I would be re-listening to this entire meeting at half speed, at slow speed, so I could write everything down. There's some beautiful kernels in all of this.
Yeah, we will be, I'm sure, taking a stab at it and making many modifications based on input from the group.
So appreciative. Yeah. So we're talking about being explicit about why we're doing the survey, what we are hoping we will get out of it, what we are hoping that they will get out of it. We are creating context. I loved your framing, Farah. We're going to ask you some big questions, and we're honoring your thoughts, and we're going to work with you and continue to have this conversation. I love the thought of this as a conversation. So we're creating the context, which in part is about why we're doing the survey. I think, quite honestly, the questions themselves are the easy part. We've already said what are most of the questions that we want to get out of it. And I do agree that making it shorter, especially if we're asking people to think.
Mm-hmm.
3 questions and a what didn't we ask that you wish we asked, 4 questions. I mean, if it gets much bigger than that, people are going to be like, I don't have an hour for this.
Yeah.
My question for us based on that is, how do we plan on using the information from this survey, particularly if we're asking big questions that are not quantitative? How will we be analyzing the information? So if we get 50 responses, there are 4 questions, but each answer is a paragraph.
Yep.
And the reason I ask that is in survey design, I always want to know and hold myself accountable to how I plan on using the answers to a question.
Yep.
I don't know what I would do with a response. Then it's maybe not, the survey isn't the right way to ask that question.
Yep. That one I can actually answer. And that is that just as if we were all in a room, if we had a big room and a week and our entire community in that room, we would facilitate these questions, and it would literally lead to what is next for creating the future. These are the questions of catalytic thinking. So in terms of creating the context, these are the questions of catalytic thinking. This is directly going to impact what we determine is next for creating the future, and not what we inside here determine, but we are collaboratively determining what is next for creating the future. And by answering these questions, you are determining what is next for creating the future. So it's not even what we will be doing is just what we would be doing if we were facilitating a conversation. So if somebody answered in a paragraph, think about the conversation we are just having right now, and how many of us are answering in paragraphs. And we're getting the gist out of that paragraph and creating the themes of, oh, okay, these are conditions that have to do with context, and these are what have to do with relationship. And so I'm seeing this as just a different form of facilitating the questions that we want to have our community answer to figure out what's next. Does that answer your question, Farah? Because
Yeah, I love that. Thank you for sharing and for how you framed it, because what I'm picking up from there is that it's not a winner take, like it's not a we're counting votes kind of thing. It's not like, oh, 5 people said we want a website, so we're doing a website, but 10 people said we want a podcast. It's we're going to take the information and we are going to analyze themes,
Mhm.
analyze trends, and explore for understanding. That is a very different thing than we are trying to see what the most popular idea or the most asked for request is.
No. It is getting back to your comment before that we're going to ask some big questions and we're honoring your thoughts, that every thought is included. That this isn't 5 people said this, 2 people said that, and the 2 of you can go, yeah, we're going to go with 5. Absolutely. Thank you for clarifying that, because but I think really emphasizing that every thought is important, that we're a community. And just like, if we're talking about what to do, should we put speed bumps in our neighborhood? Everybody's thought is important. And that's the same, it's a community. We're all just thinking, okay, what do you think about speed bumps? Well, I think that, okay, we hadn't thought about that. That's how a community talks about stuff. Without the bitching about who didn't mow their lawn. But yeah, I think that's another, it's so funny. We are so, and I guess everybody knows this, you're so used to breathing your own air. We have been operating openly and collaboratively for over a decade. And there is so much that I just assume as normal that I forget isn't normal. And so having somebody say, okay, so what are we doing with this stuff? It's like, oh yeah, we need to actually tell people. So thank you for that. That's under here. I put that in the wrong place. Yeah. So being explicit about why we're doing the survey, what it is going to make possible for us, what it's going to make possible for them, for the folks who are seeing it, whether they're filling it out or not. The context of the conversation, that it is following catalytic thinking, that we are that this is actually determining what's next, which includes what we're going to do with the information. Is there anything else, as we've been talking about how we want folks to, there's a different question. How do we want folks to feel when they are looking at the survey? Because what we've talked about in part is what we want them to be assured of, but what do we want them to feel? I know Josephine had said inspired. What else?
It's not serious, like serious isn't the right word, but I want people to kind of experience and hold a little bit of the weight of the questions we're asking. This isn't a we're a marketing survey where we're trying to understand your preferences so you can win a earbud, right? And those surveys are designed with like an eeriness to them.
Yeah.
And this to me feels different.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah, the word that came to mind as you were talking, Farah, was thoughtful.
Yeah.
And I love, this is not a marketing survey. It's like, yeah.
We don't want we don't want them to feel finished. It's and I couldn't say it's a beginning, but many times when you feel you're doing a survey, you're done. I'm done. I've submitted it. I'm finished. This is not a finished process. Again, building relationships or building a space to have a discussion and share thoughts of creating the future.
We want them to feel that they are part of the story and they want to know what happens next.
There you go.
Pulling Farah's favorite word, curious. We want them to feel like they are part of an ongoing story and they can't wait for the next episode.
Yep. So write your chapter.
Choose your own adventure.
Right.
So what does it take for them to feel that they are part of the story and they want to know what happens next? I think some of that is what we were talking about before, is what we're going to do with the information. But it's not what we are going to do with the information. It is what we all together are going to do with the information. So we need to be really, really, really clear on process.
Mm-hmm. This is challenging right here. This is the good this is the good stuff about being challenged, but being with people that allow you to be challenged and to be able to share and talk about that. And it's not a one and done. It's not a two and done. It's the path that you continue to feel challenged.
I'm wondering if, in addition to having some of this exposition in the survey document, whatever it winds up being, if some of it needs to be in video, short 2-minute video, a sentence here, a sentence there.
Yep.
The introduction to the survey being both in text and in video.
Yep.
Is there anything else that you all can think of that we would want the people who see the survey to feel? There's something there about being included and connected. It's part of something bigger than themselves. Yeah, I'm coming back to all of the conditions that we talked about. I'm going to email this document, this hand scribbled chart to you guys.
I love that chart.
Well, good.
And I think it's so helpful in many ways for many different types of learners,
Yeah,
people.
yeah. It's got everything in one place. It's hard to read it because it's teeny tiny. Okay, it's sent. But I'm looking at what we said the conditions needed to be in place for all of our engagement efforts, and that we wanted to make sure that these were included in everything. So we said that we wanted them to feel, or that they would need to feel, peer-to-peer connection. Not sure the degree to which a survey can do that, but maybe it can. Maybe just emphasizing, you are part of our community.
Mhm.
And the little green arrow that's under that, and you will have the opportunity to connect with other people who, that's another piece of it.
Mhm.
That you will have the opportunity, if you want, to connect with other people who we've asked to think about these same things. Which is part of what we were talking about before, is that this is the start of the conversation. We've talked about them learning, feeling part of something that's bigger than themselves, and talking about that in the context piece. We've talked a lot about mutual accountability.
Mhm.
I think it's really, really, really important, that fourth red box, people must feel trusted to make the decision. I think that is so important, because otherwise it does sound like what y'all have been talking about is the marketing thing. It does, it is extractive otherwise, and people are so used to. And how many requests to fill out a survey? We were away for a week a couple weeks ago. The rental car company wanted a survey, but all the hotels we stayed at wanted a survey.
Right.
And so I think a big piece is again, in the context, in the what are we going to do? What are we collaboratively going to do with the information? I think is huge, not just from a mutual accountability piece, but from they need to feel trusted, that we trust them. And I think that there's a big, we're all in this together. I think that's another another feeling thing. It's not a we in here are asking you out there. It's a we're all in this together.
And isn't it interesting how surveys have now created an impression of who I am and what my response is without ever really seeing, talking, or hearing from me? And I think what we're saying is you have an opportunity to come into the space and not just have your words be construed as what they may or may not have been.
Yeah, very much so. Very much so. You need a process for determining the best possible outcome. They need a variety of ways to step in. That's part of this. People need to feel a sense of energy and hope. What can provide that?
A sense of energy and hope.
Uh-huh.
The connecting the relationships, finding a safe place to create the future.
Are your back doing okay?
Yeah, hanging in there.
Okay. I'm really feeling you. I'm thinking about just a single phrase, like, and it doesn't have to be this. I'm just spitballing. If creating the future gives you a sense of hope for the future, or again, this is probably part of the invitation, or part of the preamble or whatever. You know, the intention of catalytic thinking is to create a future different from our past. I think some of those,
Yeah.
In terms of a sense of hope, just and again, you know, not wanting to put words in their mouth. So how do you balance? Maybe it is just asking them what inspires them. What inspires them to stay connected to creating the future. Let them create that.
I keep coming back to not wanting to put too much pressure on any one of these engagement, because it is, again, it's part of a story and it's part of the process.
Yeah.
And I kind of sitting there like, it's okay for me if someone takes a survey where I ask big questions and they don't come out of it being like, woohoo, right? Like it's, if the survey or these questions elicits an experience, it creates an experience, and that is reflective, even if it's like questioning, I'm okay with all of those. Because again, I feel like if we are like, the survey must create a sense of inspiration or excitement or hope, to me, those are very different questions, and it leads me to a very different place than one of open curiosity, because I would want the process of catalytic thinking to open up avenues of hope, but simply catalytic thinking existing in the world, I don't think is enough to do it. A, and then B, and this comes back to, I think, some things that the group has talked about before, is also that point of view of this isn't, and I think Hilda, you mentioned this already, it's like, this is about creating a future different from our past. This isn't about, because my mind would automatically, if I got the survey, didn't know all that much, be like, are you going to use these questions to further oppress me, to further the forces of evil? Like, are these questions being used to like, what are the different ways that we can like perpetrate harm? And I don't want to live in a world in which we act like that those forces aren't also at play. And so that's again where I'm like, I'm okay if this process isn't we're not forcing people to feel hopeful
Yeah.
when there is so much happening around us.
Yeah. It's why, as I started to scribble and I've crossed out everything that I was scribbling, my final thought was, let's let them generate their own hope. If that's going to come out of it, let's, and I have to tell, go ahead, Farah, I'm sorry.
Sure. I was going to say, I think the question though for me is for us. What would it take for us to feel hopeful when we get the responses from the survey? Because again, I think that there's some things that we need in order for us to feel hopeful about the future of our work together and creating the future. And to me, that's different need than for a participant or survey taker to feel hopeful. So I do think that is a really acute need. And so that would be my question, Hildy, is what do you need to feel hopeful after stage one, right? Like, again, it's part of a continuing conversation, but when we're done with the survey and you're looking at it, what do you need in order to feel hopeful about what's coming next?
More than 3 people answering it.
I love that answer because again, it's like, it's so truthful and it is just so like, yeah, I think we can make huge changes when we are just honest and clear about what our needs are and what we need. And
I the thing that's exciting to me in this is I want to know. I want to know the answers. I want to know what, the answer to what benefit do you get from creating the future? Because again, if these are people who are in some form of relationship, even if we've never, actually clicked and met each other, if they're in some form of relationship with creating the future, I want to know why. I'm morbidly curious to know why. I want to know what they think what's next for creating the future can make possible for all of the people that they think it can make possible for. I'm just, and even if it is just 2 people, I want to know what those 2 people think. So as you were talking before, Farah, about creating a future different than the past, are you just going to use this information to further oppress me? Years ago, I was going to a speaking gig. I was picked up by a cab at the airport to get to the hotel. And the guy asked, what are you doing here? You're speaking. I think they had sent a car. You're speaking at this conference. What are you speaking about? And I'm not a small talky kind of person. And I tend to be fairly introverted when it comes to those kinds of conversations. And so my tagline has always been, well, I teach people how to change the world. And the guy said, for the better. And it really opened my eyes to, oh yeah, and it's interesting. People always think they're changing it for the better, but better for whom? But I thought it was for the better. It's like, ooh, yeah.
Yeah, to me, it's not just for the better, it is for whom, because for some people, a better world looks very different than what a better world for me looks like.
Yeah. Well, is it a better world for me or a better world for all of us is always my question. But and you can't have a better world for me if you don't have a better world for all of us. So yeah, but we don't need to go there right now. I think we've got plenty. How are you all feeling? Sherry's probably feeling like massively overwhelmed. I don't want to put words in your mouth.
I've just taken every single thing everyone said and gonna get our group together and try to start something to start people thinking and sharing and creating.
Are either of you feeling like there's anything big that we're missing?
I am curious about
if this is a continued conversation between the survey and some future events and discussions, how are we making those decisions on what question gets asked in the survey versus somewhere else? And how are we holding that transition between the pieces?
The first question of how are we deciding what will be asked where, that was part of the discussion on Monday as we were talking about the facilitated part of the conversations. And so tentatively, as of right now, we'll see, how it goes as we're moving along. I think it's also probably important to note that just like any conversation, it's fluid. And so our plans right now, I'm writing this down. And what I just scribbled is our plans right now are X and Y, but that could change based on what you tell us.
Hildy@creatingthatfuture.org. Sent Friday,
Sorry.
September 6th.
I'm like, wow, I know that person. Our plans right now are to ask X and Y and blah, 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 but that could change based on what you tell us. And so I think that that's important. But as of right now, we're looking at really just going through the questions of the catalytic thinking framework, and that the first set of questions will be asked in survey form, in written form, or if they, that's also, if it's easier for them to answer via audio or video. If they want to record something, I know for a lot of people, it's a lot easier. Dimitri is one of those people. The brilliance he comes up with when he is just speaking extemporaneously and just talking. And I've said for years, I always wished I had a bucket to just carry all this stuff that just comes out of his mouth, and he can't tell you 3 minutes later what he said. And so giving people those folks who think best when they're speaking, giving them the opportunity to answer the survey either via audio, video, or in writing. That just occurred to me. It's also helpful for people. Yeah, it's just how their brains work, what their abilities are. And I just completely lost my thought. But the first few questions will be in the survey, and then the second group of questions will be the conditions questions, especially will be in that facilitated conversation. And so the answer to the how question, we hashed out pretty much on Monday, and again, it's tentative. It's based on what comes out of, we may have to ask more questions via, we need to clarify, we need to whatever, but we'll know that once we get the answers. Does that answer what you were asking for? And I don't remember what your other question was.
Yeah, no, this is helpful. It answered both of my questions.
Good. Okay. Oh, I'm really excited now about having them answer however they want to, that they don't have to do it in writing, that they can do it via audio or video or something.
That's a great option now for you to have brought that forward. Hadn't thought about that. That's good.
Because we all have Zoom, and just, you don't need to post anything to YouTube. You don't need to do anything. Just record it on Zoom and send me a link.
Yep.
Any other thoughts, questions? And for those like me that think afterwards, send them on if you got them. Send them to all of us if you've got them.
So give me a time frame. I'm want to get this group together. I want them to have an opportunity to review the recording, just sort of give me a little time frame so I can make sure that we're staying on track.
I think we would like to be able to send the survey, and we talked about taking sort of September into a little bit of October to get all of our ducks in a row. The meeting about what will be in the invitation is not happening until the 26th of this month. And so I'm thinking I would love to get the invitation and the survey out by about the 15th of October.
Oh, sure. Okay.
Yeah. So, as soon as we can get a first iteration, because
Yeah.
I know it's going to take several iterations of every piece we're talking about here.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's really helpful. Thank you.
Because in that way we can pretty much, I think if we can wrap up these conversations, the survey and the facilitation by Thanksgiving, because once Thanksgiving hits, we're done until the new year, and I would rather not wait till the new year.
You're right. Yep.
Yeah. So as soon as legitimately possible.
I'll be sure to send you back a very actions, timeline here for
That'd be
this
awesome.
group so that you're well aware
That'd be
in
awesome.
line with that. Okay.
That would be wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Let's take a moment for reflection. What is standing out to you from this conversation?
The thought involved in creating the survey or whatever the tool ends up being called, and the focus of creating it using the catalytic thinking concepts that we've been working on, but then to be able to pull it together to the point where we can have a good discussion amongst the group and have everyone's input. I think that's a step for me that's going to be fun. It's going to be exciting. It's going to generate more investment and thought into what benefit a person can get out of creating the future.
And would be neat to see, because I know you all at the Patterson Foundation do a whole bunch of surveys. So be neat to see a rethinking of
Yeah, we do. And you're right. Yes.
It is so interesting to me always that, and we talked about this, Farah, yesterday was the last meeting of the practice cohort that was working alongside of us with this. And the number of people who said that while they started thinking that this was going to apply to work, it applies to everything. And I was sharing the story that years ago, one of our students, and it could be a decade ago, one of our students, when we were still doing immersion, she came back afterwards and she said, I took this for work in my community, but oh my God, I'm using it for my husband. And just the fact that it is a way of seeing and a way of thinking that both creates clarity and helps us understand all of the intervening conditions and circumstances that people are in. So, Farah, how about you? What is standing out to you from our conversation?
I'm holding on to this notion that these are continuing conversations versus parallel conversations. And that, you know, I often think about modalities of data collection as wanting to create kind of options so people can share in the places and ways they feel most comfortable, but it's a shift to say, actually, all of these they will be in conversation with each other, not just,
Yeah. When I said earlier that when we came to this the other day, you could just see everybody's eyes light up. That feels really neat. My reflection is I am so excited about everything we talked about here. That's the overwhelming thought I have leaving. Is I could name every single thing in my notes and circle it all. I'm just so really excited to see. I really can't wait to see this instrument. I really can't wait to see what we're going to pull together, what it's going to look like, how people are going to respond to it. I'm just feeling great about it. So I'm feeling very grateful and so glad to see and hear you, Farah, because it has been a while, and that feels nice too. I hope that you're doing better, because there's nothing worse than back pain.
thank you. I appreciate that.
All right, guys. Thank you. I am deeply grateful, and we'll talk soon.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you. Feel better, Far. Thank you.